Parallel parking, a dying art. Facts. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to SCG Filmmakers, and here on this channel we talk about ways we can improve our video shooting and editing. Now, if you edit on a PC, guys, get excited, because in today's segment we're going to be talking about quite possibly the #1 upgrade you can apply to your PC and yield about a 35 to 40% decrease in timeline rendering and exporting. Stay tuned. You see, I pretty much just edit video, man. So I'm wondering if replacing this with like a water cooler is even worth it. Let's find out, man. We're gonna install one into this computer back here, and we're gonna do some tests on it and see if it's even worth it. Okay, so before we get started, I would just like to say that Cooler Master is not sponsoring this channel or this video in any way, shape, or form. So any of the thoughts and opinions that I give concerning this product throughout this video, it's just my honest take on it. So if you're in the market for a closed loop water cooling system, this Cooler Master MasterLiquid ML120L seems to be a pretty good buy, man. For the price, I mean, and for the performance that you get out of it, it's like hands down probably the best upgrade that you can do to your PC in terms of video editing. Also, if you're not into the whole unboxing thing and seeing how things are packaged and like all that jazz, you can skip ahead to this timestamp here. The first thing we come across as soon as you open the box is the CPU water cooling block. We also have included the 120mm RGB fan. We also have the included warranty information pamphlet, as well as a quick installation guide. But you won't be needing that because you're already watching this. As you can see, the CPU water cooling block's already attached to the radiator, so you don't have to worry about assembling any pipes, any tubes, or getting any connectors. Everything's all ready for you to go. This is a closed loop system. That's part of the advantages for getting a closed loop, is that you don't have to run around, search for various parts, making sure pieces match, etc., etc. One pretty cool thing to note is, like for me, I'm not really like into the whole RGB lighting and like the different color lights. Even when I first unpackaged it, I was just like, I'm not really into lights, man. But this particular splitter, man, they sold me. Like just how it looks, the various modes that you can put the lights into, and just the overall aesthetic of how it makes the fan appear like it's slowing down and speeding up. I think it's pretty cool, man. I think it's definitely worth taking a look at. The next thing we got here is like a small Ziploc bag with an assortment of various parts that you're going to need to put this system together. We also have included with the kit the thermal compound paste. It's kind of like just your baseline thermal compound. I actually recommend this MX4 thermal compound. It's by a company called Arctic. I think it's even like under $10 or something like that. I'll put up like a screenshot of it on Amazon, and I'll put some links for it down in the description as well. Now, I'm most definitely going to recommend you guys install this water cooling system using this MX4 thermal compound by Arctic, because based on some of the tests I've done, I've noticed a decrease in CPU load and idle temperatures by at least 3 to 4 degrees Celsius. Okay, so once you have all your components set out and you've done like your small little inspection of all the pieces, making sure everything's straight, the first thing I recommend doing before touching anything or taking anything apart is to figure out exactly where your radiator is going to be in conjunction with your CPU cooling water block. Every computer case is different. Every CPU on every motherboard is situated slightly differently. For this particular setup, I found it pretty easy just to go ahead and remove my 120mm exhaust fan. Go ahead and relocate that fan to the top portion of my case, and then go ahead and install my radiator in place of where that original 120mm exhaust fan used to be. Another good thing to note is if you guys see like any excess dust anywhere, just go ahead and clean it up while you have everything taken apart. The next thing we do is get the radiator actually prepped to do the install. The first thing we're going to do is go ahead and grab that 120mm fan and go ahead and begin installing it to the radiator itself. Within the kit, you'll notice screws that look something like this, and it simply just go into one of the 4 corners of the fan and then screw right into the radiator itself. All right, cool. So your radiator is now set up. The fan is mounted to the radiator itself. Now it's time to mount the radiator / fan into your computer case. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do in this installation is remove the old CPU cooling fan and heatsink. So all we need to do is go ahead and lift up on those handles, and it's going to release a latch that's attached to the CPU socket side on the motherboard itself. All right, once you've removed the heatsink, you're gonna notice a whole bunch of like old thermal paste that's left on from the old heatsink. The best way to clean it is just take like an alcohol pad or even like a Q-tip and just dip it in some alcohol and just remove all of that old thermal paste residue. And now, a quick message from our sponsors. This video is not sponsored by Squarespace. It's actually sponsored by me, because I can give two shits at all about having a website. But if starting a website that has everything your YouTube channel has on it anyway is something that you're just dying to get into, then I would recommend definitely checking out Squarespace, because that's what all the other YouTube channels that I've seen say to do. And now back to the video. All right guys, once you've got that CPU looking like brand spanking new, you'll see some brackets within the kit that look like this. And all they do is simply screw onto the water block. They only go on one way. The best way that I found to do it was just go ahead and put the screws in first and then align the brackets second, and then just go ahead and start the thread, and then just go ahead and finish it off with a Phillips screwdriver. Okay, now we could go ahead and rinse and repeat this process for the remainder of the brackets. All right, so your bracket is together. Now it's time to actually install the water cooling block. But before we do that, we need to apply some thermal compound onto the CPU. Now it may look like that older thermal compound paste was just like slathered on there with like butter, but I assure you that it wasn't. The best way to apply this thermal compound is just to put a small amount like in the center of the CPU itself. I would say like the size of a black bean, and you can also add in just a little bit of dabs like towards the corners just to make sure you get full coverage, and that should be good enough. The next thing we'll do is we'll go ahead and mount this radiator to the rear portion of this case. Looking inside your bag here, we'll see 4 black screws. These 4 black screws just simply screw into the rear portion of the radiator, and it goes through the back part where the old 120mm exhaust fan used to go. And that takes us back to the CPU cooling water block, where we just simply affix the water block onto the CPU. And once again, we have the latch system here that just simply latches onto the CPU socket, the plastic side on the motherboard side. Once you can actually see that these latches are secured, you can go ahead and give the screw a couple clockwise turns, just making sure that you don't over tighten them. All right, we are almost done. The last step in this process is to get everything wired up and make sure everything runs properly. So you'll see 3 female 4-pin RGB connectors, and it also comes with these 4 male kind of connectors that you see here. They actually connect the 2 female portions together. A good thing to know here is that these RGB connectors actually connect a certain way. All you need to do is look at the 2 arrows, go ahead and align the 2 arrows up, and then you're good to go. Next, we'll go ahead and plug our power source in to the other side of the RGB splitter, and then we'll go ahead and run our 4-pin power connectors to the back part of this case. Now, one thing to note about this kit here is and I don't know why they did this, but these Molex connectors like aren't even used anymore. Like the last time I seen these was like computers from like 10 years ago, man. If you notice, like everything nowadays is straight SATA. So if your power supply within your computer doesn't have these female Molex 4-pin connectors, you'll actually have to buy an adapter that goes from male Molex 4-pin connector to SATA. I'll go ahead and leave a link in the description for that actual adapter. For this particular installation, I actually got lucky and I went ahead and dug into my power supply box, and it actually came with the cable I needed to just go directly into the RGB power supply itself. So kudos to Intermax power supply units. Alright guys, so out with the old heatsink, in with the new water cooling system. It's almost time to get this thing tested out. But before we get started with any of that, I'm going to recommend you go ahead and head over to Core Temp. download their latest software. And what core temp does is it allows you to monitor the actual live temperature of all the cores within your CPU. Also, this will give you a good indicator or a bad indicator as to whether or not your CPU water cooling system is actually doing its job. Average safe temperatures are probably within 27 to 35 degrees Celsius, and obviously that's depending on your specific CPU. Alright guys, so for this particular build, we've downloaded that core temp app. We figured out that all of our CPU cores are operating within normal temperatures, and the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and hop straight into some tests. Alright guys, these comparisons are primarily focused around video editing, so if you edit video, you're in good luck. The first two of the 4 tests are going to be comparing the CPU temperatures at idle and under full load. First with the AMD factory cooler, and then followed by the newly installed liquid cooler. I would also like to mention that I'm not going to really go into any specifics concerning any of the actual components in this computer in this video, but I'll just simply post them in the description below. Alright, that moves us right along into our CPU temperature with the AMD factory heatsink sitting at around 41-42 degrees Celsius. And then we have our CPU temperature with the brand new liquid cooler, and it is sitting idly at 27 degrees Celsius, which is absolutely crazy. That's like a 14 to 15 degree temperature drop, which should give us a lot of headroom for some overclocking in the future. Next up, we have what our CPU temperatures would look like under load, and the only thing I did to put it under load is to actually have it rendering out some footage. So we have the AMD factory cooler sitting at around 61 to 62 degrees Celsius, and with the liquid cooler, it is sitting at a chilly about 41 to 43 degrees Celsius, and that's about a good 10 to 11 degree difference in temperature. Alright, get your timers ready because we're about to render out 2 minutes worth of footage. First up, we have the AMD factory cooler, and it ends up rendering out this 2-minute clip in 6 minutes and 54 seconds. Shortly followed by our liquid cooler that we just installed, which ends up rendering that same 2-minute clip in 5 minutes and 36 seconds. That is 1 minute and 20 seconds faster than the factory AMD heatsink. Next up, we have a 5-minute clip with an unsharp mask applied to an adjustment layer over top of it, and with the factory cooler on, it ends up rendering out a timeline preview in 1 minute and 56 seconds. And our liquid cooler cranks out this timeline preview with the unsharp mask layer over top of 5 seconds of footage in 50 seconds. That's about 1 minute and 6 seconds faster than the factory cooler. Alright, this next comparison is for all my overclockers out there. Now, I'm not going to get into any of the specifics on exactly how I overclock this processor to 4.6 megahertz. That's for like a whole nother video. But with the same liquid cooler setup and the CPU overclocked to 4.6 megahertz, we were able to crank out that same 2 minutes of footage that we did in test 3 in 4 minutes and 14 seconds. That's a whole 2 minutes and 40 seconds faster than the CPU operating at 4.0 megahertz with the factory cooler on, and then with the 4.6 megahertz overclock with the liquid cooler installed. Alright, so in conclusion, what exactly does this mean for you as a video editor? Well, this means that you can edit video up to 60% faster. In this case, we were able to overclock our CPU to 4.6. That's why at the beginning of the video I mentioned that you'll see increase in performances at around 35 to 40%. And that's just because I'm not sure if you'll be able to overclock your CPU to the levels that we were able to overclock them. So that was more of like an estimated guess on percentages of increases that you'll be able to see in your setup. But overall, I'll let you guys decide whether or not $50 or $60 spent on this water cooler is worth the performance increase. So I'd actually like to hear from you guys out there. What PC upgrades have you guys been able to do as of late that has been able to substantially decrease your overall workflow when it comes to video editing? Go ahead and feel free to let me know in the comments below. That about wraps it up for this video, guys. If you have any questions, whether it's regarding the install or any of the computer components that I use for this particular build, don't forget to hit me up in the comments below, or also I'll be in IG, and I'll leave my tag here. So once again, thanks for watching, and if you learned anything from this video, don't forget to drop me a like and check out some of the other content on this channel. We'll see you guys in the next video.